إن الحمد لله نحمده ونستعينه ونستغفره ونؤمن به ونتوكل عليه ونعوذ بالله من شرور أنفسنا ومن سيئات أعمالنا من يهده الله فلا مضل له ومن يضلل فلا هادي له وأشهد أن لا إله إلا الله وحده لا شريك له وأشهد أن محمدا عبده ورسوله اللهم صل على سيدنا محمد وعلى آله وصحبه وأنصاره وأزواجه وذرته أجمعين أما بعد قال الله تعالى أعوذ بالله من الشيطان الرجيم بسم الله الرحمن الرحيم يا أيها الناس اتقوا ربكم الذي خلقكم من نفس واحدة وخلق منها زوجها وبث منهما رجالا كثيرا ونساء واتقوا الله الذي تساءلون به والأرحام إن الله كان عليكم رقيبا وقال أيضا الذين آمنوا اتقوا الله حق تقاته ولا تموتن إلا وأنتم مسلمون. All praise and glory is due to Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala. He it is that gives life and takes life. All praise and glory is due to Allah who has created the angels from light, the jinn from smokeless fire, and human beings from clay. I hereby testify to the fact that there is nothing in the heavens above nor the earth below that deserves to be worshipped except Allah. He is one. He has no partners. Likewise, I testify to the fact that Muhammad ibn Abdullah is his last prophet and messenger. Brothers and sisters in Islam, we have been explaining Bulugh al-Maram, and today we shall continue with another topic from Bulugh al-Maram, and this is Ahkaam of Ghusl, the rulings of the Ghusl, which is the compulsory bath that Muslims take to purify themselves for acts of ibadah. The hadith that we are on at this moment is narrated Abu Sa'id al-Khudri, Allah's Messenger said, the water of the ghusl is due to the water of the semen. So if you notice semen coming from your private parts, whether it is wet dream or intercourse, the ghusl becomes compulsory on you. Narrated Salama, Sulaim, the wife of Abu Talha, said, O Allah's Messenger, Allah is not ashamed of the haqq, the truth. Is ghusl compulsory for a woman when she sees a sexual dream, a wet dream? The Prophet said yes. If she sees the signs of liquid, the discharge, then ghusl becomes compulsory on her. So what this hadith means is that women experience a discharge like men do, and ghusl becomes compulsory on her if it's the discharge of a wet dream or the discharge of intercourse. In Islam, everything is major and minor. You have major kufr and minor kufr. To drink alcohol is minor kufr, but to dabble in black magic is major kufr. You have major shirk and minor shirk. To do good to show off is minor shirk, but to kill an animal in the name of a false deity and call the name of the false deity is major shirk that takes you outside the fold of Islam. You have major hypocrisy and minor hypocrisy. To steal is minor hypocrisy, but to harbor doubts in your heart that Muhammad was a prophet is a major hypocrisy that takes you outside the fold of Islam. Your iman is not accepted because your iman is contaminated with doubts. You cannot doubt that Muhammad was a prophet. You cannot doubt the Quran was the book of Allah, is Kalamullah, the speech of Allah, and you cannot doubt Judgment Day, and you cannot doubt paradise and the hellfire. If you doubt these things, you're a kafir, because you allow your iman to become contaminated with doubts. These issues are aqidah issues. In regards to fiqh, we have two types of discharge, major and minor, that women see. Take, for example, if a woman supports the football team, Buffalo Bills, and they win the Super Bowl, she'll have a discharge of excitement. If she supports the Redskins and they defeat the Dallas Cowboys, she becomes excited and have a discharge. But this discharge is a minor discharge. It requires wudu, not ghusl. So if you don't know that in Islam everything is major and minor, you're going to go astray in regards to aqidah, and you're going to go astray in regards to fiqh. This is why people become khawarij, because they paint every kufr with the same brush. They don't realize that there are two types of kufr, major and minor kufr. Likewise, in fiqh, you have major impurity and minor impurity. If you urinate, it's a minor impurity that requires wudu. But if you have an ejaculation because of intercourse or wet dream, it's a major impurity that requires ghusl. So in Islam, everything is divided up into major and minor. Now, there is a set way in which the Prophet ﷺ used to make ghusl. There are two types of ghusl: the fard ghusl and the sunnah ghusl. The fard ghusl is short, and it is the minimum requirements that you have to do in order for your ghusl to be accepted. And the fard ghusl was promoted by Abu Hanifa and his students and his followers, and this ghusl is accepted. So what is the fard ghusl? The first requirement is your intention. So you say in your heart, I intend to purify myself with ghusl in order to perform acts of ibadah. That's what you say in your heart. I intend to perform ghusl. I intend to purify myself with ghusl to perform acts of ibadah, and this is called the niyyah, the intention. Number two, you wash out your mouth. Number three, you wash out your nose. So there is no ghusl without washing out your mouth and your nose. If you did not wash out your mouth and your nose when you make ghusl, your ghusl is batil, it's not accepted. You wash out your mouth. Number three, you wash out your nose. Number four, you wash your entire body. These are the four pillars of the ghusl, which is fard, and it is very short. And when we say you wash your entire body, you have to make sure the water touches your skull. The root of your hair has to become wet with water. So what is the sunnah ghusl? After explaining the fard ghusl, what is the sunnah ghusl? And it is worthy of mentioning that the ghusl replaces the wudu. So if you make ghusl, you don't need to make wudu. Do you realize when I explained to you the pillars of the fard ghusl, I didn't mention wudu? I didn't mention wudu. Because when you make ghusl, you don't need to make wudu, because the wudu is being replaced by the ghusl. Now, as for the sunnah ghusl, which is called mustahab, it is called the sunnah because the Rasul sallallahu alaihi wasallam, he used to perform ghusl in this format. And two of his wives explained to us how the Prophet used to perform his ghusl, Aisha and Maymuna, because they used to make ghusl with the Prophet. You are allowed to make ghusl, with the bath, with your wife. The Prophet used to have shower, ghusl, with his wives. So because of that, Aisha and Maymuna, these two wives, they explained to us in details how the Rasul sallallahu alaihi wasallam used to perform his ghusl. So the sunnah ghusl, which is called the mustahab, the recommended ghusl, performed by the Rasul sallallahu alaihi wasallam, is as follows. You make your intention. Number two, you say Bismillah. So you are allowed to say Bismillah in your bathroom, even though the toilet and the bathroom is in the same place. Because the bathrooms we have today are modern bathrooms. When you flush your toilet, the feces is not there. It's carried away, maybe a mile away. It's not there. So because you have a modern toilet, you are allowed to say Bismillah in your bathroom. So the first pillar is to say, your niyyah in your heart, I intend to perform ghusl, to purify myself for acts of ibadah or for the sake of Allah. Number 2, you say Bismillah out loud. Number 3, you wash your hands. The Prophet washed his hands. Number 4, the Prophet washed his private parts. And when you wash your private parts, you use your left hand to wash your private parts. Number 5, after the Prophet washed his private parts, he performed the wudu of salah. He performed wudu the way you perform the wudu of salah. Number 6, the Rasul sallallahu alaihi wasallam used to pour water on his head and wash his entire body, beginning with the right side, then the left side. This is how the Rasul sallallahu alaihi wasallam performed his ghusl, according to Aisha, who used to perform ghusl with the Prophet, and Maimuna, another wife of the Rasul sallallahu alaihi wasallam, who used to perform ghusl with the Prophet. Now, what about women with braids? Do they have to undo their hair to make ghusl? The women who have braids or plaits. Salama, the wife of the Prophet, said, O Messenger of Allah, I am a woman who have braids. Do I need to undo my braids to perform my ghusl? The Rasul said, no, you don't need to undo your braids. As long as the water touches the root of your hair, the scalp, your wudu is not, your ghusl is accepted. As long as the water touches the scalp, your ghusl is accepted. You don't need to undo your braids. And when you make wudu and you wipe your head, the water doesn't have to touch the skull for wudu. But when you make ghusl and you wash your head, the water has to touch the skin, the skull. The water has to touch the skull for ghusl. But for wudu, when a woman wipes her hair, the water doesn't have to touch the skull. So that is the difference between wudu and ghusl. And it makes no difference if she is having a ghusl from janaba, sexual impurity, or she's having a ghusl from menses. It makes no difference. If she wears braids, it's not compulsory on her to undo her braids for her ghusl. أقول قولي هذا وأستغفر الله لي ولكم. I've sort of said, and I seek forgiveness for myself and for you. Alhamdulillahi Rabbil Alameen, wassalatu wassalam ala imam al-anbiya wal mursaleen, Sayyidina Muhammad wa ala alihi wa sahbihi wa ansarihi wa azwajihi wa dhurriyyatihi ajma'in, amma ba'd. The next chapter, the next question is, when should a Muslim perform ghusl? I have in front of me 14 occasions in which it is either sunnah for you to do ghusl or fard. 14 occasions in which ghusl becomes fard, compulsory, or ghusl becomes sunnah. So sunnah means recommended. Number 1, a woman who is menstruating. A woman who is menstruating, when her menstruation stops, it is compulsory on her to perform ghusl immediately in order to pray the salah which is coming up. She's not allowed to delay her ghusl and miss 3-4 salah. And the menstruating woman, it is not permissible for her to go to bed with her husband when the menstruation stops until she performs ghusl. So even though the menstruation stops, you cannot go to bed with your husband until you perform ghusl. Number 2, janaba, post-sexual impurity, the sexual impurity. And the person who is in a state of janaba is not allowed to touch the Quran. You can't even recite the Quran if you are in a state of janaba, which is sexual impurity. So to make a ghusl, to have ghusl from menses and janaba, that is compulsory. Hijama, which is cupping, to release blood from your body, to purify the blood. Ghusl on this occasion is sunnah. Number 4, Salatul Jum'ah. The Rasul sallallahu alaihi wasallam said, every Muslim should make ghusl before he comes to Salatul Jum'ah. The 4 great Imams, Abu Hanifa, Malik, Shafi, and Ahmed, they say ghusl for Jum'ah is mustahab, because the Prophet used the word afdal. That ghusl is better, afdal. Because the Prophet said the ghusl is afdal, the Imams said that ghusl on a Friday is not fard, it is mustahab, recommended, strongly recommended. But the Zahiriya madhab, which is the 5th madhab, they say we beg to differ. It is compulsory on every Muslim to have ghusl on a Friday before he comes to the masjid. The correct opinion is the opinion of the majority, the Jamhur. However, Ibn Taymiyyah believes, and he passed a fatwa that says it is compulsory on a Muslim who smells and is sweaty to have ghusl on a Friday. So the Muslim who has an odor problem, he smells, and he's a sweaty person, Ibn Taymiyyah said ghusl is compulsory on that man or that woman on a Friday before coming to the masjid. And the correct opinion is the opinion of Ibn Taymiyyah, that ghusl is compulsory on the person who smells. Number 5, ghusl is compulsory on the person who takes his shahada, because of the hadith of Thumama ibn Uthal. A mushrik took his shahada, and the Rasul sallallahu alaihi wasallam said, go and make ghusl. Imam Malik and Ahmed ibn Hanbal, they are of the opinion that the kafir who takes shahada, ghusl is compulsory on him, because that is his baptism. And the circumcision is compulsory on him, according to Ahmed ibn Hanbal. The kafir who takes his shahada, he has to make ghusl and he has to become circumcised. According to Abu Hanifa and Imam Shafi, the kafir who takes shahada, ghusl is mustahab, recommended, not fard, mustahab. Uthaymeen of the Arabian Peninsula is inclined to the opinion that says ghusl is compulsory on the kafir who takes his shahada, to be on the safe side. Number 6, you are a person who wash the dead. If you wash the dead, then you should make ghusl. Is it compulsory? No, it's not. If you wash the dead, it's not compulsory on you to make ghusl because you wash your dead brother or you wash your dead wife. You can wash your wife. Abu Hanifa said you cannot wash your wife if your wife should die. The other Imam said you can wash your wife if your wife should die. Because when Fatima died, who washed her? Ali, her husband. When Fatima died, Ali washed her and buried her and kept her grave as a big secret. And he didn't tell anyone where her grave is. Up until today, nobody knows where her grave is, because Ali took the secret to his grave. So to make ghusl after washing a dead person is sunnah, not compulsory on you. Number 7, after a wet dream, whether you are a man or a woman, if you experience a wet dream, ghusl is compulsory, not sunnah, fard. So because of the wet dream, your ghusl is fard, compulsory, not sunnah. Number 8, ihram. So if you go to Mecca to perform Hajj, there is a place called the Miqat. When I made Hajj, they had a Miqat, meaning the station, that you go and assume your ihram, to put on the 2 white clothing and say, Labbaik Allahumma labbaik, labbaik la sharika laka labbaik, innal hamda wa ni'mata laka wal mulk la sharika lak. So you go in a state of ihram. If you are traveling from the west by plane. You can assume your ihram from the airport. The sunnah before you go into ihram is that you make ghusl. So before you put on those two pieces of clothing, white clothing, and say labbaika hajj or labbaika umrah, the sunnah is to have ghusl at the miqat. And every country has their own miqat. You make ghusl and you pray 2 rak'ah. The ghusl is sunnah and the 2 rak'ah is sunnah. But when I made hajj, everyone made ghusl before they go into ihram. Everyone. Even though it's a sunnah, everyone made ghusl before putting on their ihram. So this is the 8th occasion in which ghusl is performed, and this ghusl is sunnah, not fard. Number 9, the dead man. The man who is dead, you should wash him. That is his ghusl. So if your Muslim brother should die, it is compulsory on you to wash him. That is his ghusl. You will give him ghusl. If one person wash him or 2 people, the community is not held accountable. But if you bury him without washing him, the whole community is in sin, because you bury your brother without washing him after he died. Number 10, nifas. A woman who gives birth to a baby. She bleeds for 40 days. Some women bleed for 30 days. When the bleeding stops, she has to make ghusl and start to perform salah immediately. She is not allowed to delay her ghusl. And the bleeding, which is called nifas, can be 30 days or 40 days. You shouldn't wait until 40 days to make ghusl. If your bleeding stops at 30 days, because the bleeding stops, you have to make ghusl. It's compulsory on you to make ghusl immediately and start to pray. And you are allowed to go to bed with your husband if your husband calls you to bed. You don't need to wait 40 days to make ghusl when you give birth to a child. Number 11, you make ghusl for Eid, Eid al-Fitr and Eid al-Adha. The ghusl for Eid is like the ghusl for Jum'ah. It is mustahab, strongly recommended. But I've never seen any Muslim going to Eid without having a ghusl. I've never seen it. Even though this ghusl is sunnah, recommended, not fard, sunnah. I've never seen no Muslim going to Eid without taking a shower and wearing their best clothing that they have in the house. They wear the best perfume, the sweetest perfume. They make ghusl, wear the sweetest perfume and wear the best clothing. Every Muslim, they do this for their Eid. This ghusl is sunnah, not fard. Number 12, go into a gathering. So if you have a Muslim gathering, a conference, a symposium, and there will be 200 people, 500 people, 1,000 people, and there is a speaker who will be speaking at the conference. Because you are going to mix with a large body of people at a gathering, it is mustahab for you to make ghusl before leaving your home. Number 13, if you suffer epileptic seizure, or you fainted, when you regain your sanity after fainting or epilepsy, you should perform ghusl. Number 14, tawaf. Before you make tawaf around the Kaaba, the tawaf of ziyarah, visiting tawaf, or the tawaf of wada, the farewell tawaf, it is recommended that you perform ghusl. Also, if you're a person who becomes angry quickly and you are in the fit of anger, you make wudu. If you are still angry, go and perform ghusl. Because the anger that you experience is coming from the shaitan. Anger is from the shaitan. And by you performing ghusl, you calm your anger down, because the heat which is in your body, that heat you feel in your body because of the anger, all of that is coming from the shaitan. Brothers and sisters in Islam, this is our topic, ghusl. I pray Allah Ta'ala that it will be of benefit to the speaker and the listeners. And inshallah Ta'ala, we hope that we'll be meeting here next week for another chapter in Bulugh al-Maram, or maybe I'll choose to speak on a topic of Aqidah. ربنا تواخذنا إن نسينا أو أخطأنا ربنا ولا تحمل علينا إسرا كما حملته على من قبلنا ربنا ولا تحملنا ما لا طاقتنا به واعف عنا واغفرنا وارحمنا أنت مولانا فانصرنا على القوم الكافرين. ربنا لا تزغ قلوبنا بعد إذ هديتنا وهب لنا من لدنك رحمة إنك أنت الوهاب. يا عباد الرحمن إن الله يأمر بالعدل والإحسان وإيتاء ذي القربى وينهى عن الفحشاء والمنكر والبغي يعظكم لعلكم تتقون. أقيموا الصلاة.